Welcome to Things You Don't Know. This is our year end review episode. We have covered a lot of ground this year. We also started another podcast called History Twists, which is built around positing a divergence in history and following the possible outcomes. If you haven't checked it out, you ought to. It's kind of fun, and we have a lot more coming on those. It's actually a lot of work to do those, but it's fun too, and hopefully fun for our audience. Now, both of the podcasts, this one, Things You Don't Know, as well as History Twists, have been fun, but there are a lot of work. And just a quick recognition here. There's no way I could have accomplished all the work that we've done without Dr. Deneen's hard work and his expertise. You know, Dr. Deneen brings a kind of grounding factor here. I bring the wild and crazy. He anchors the history and the reality and pulls my chain sometimes and says, well, maybe not. But I couldn't have done it without him. I wouldn't want to have anyone else be my partner in this.
Well, thank you, Dr. Weaver. I feel the same way about you because when we first began this, I figured it was just going to be a lot of exposition on current topics, and you showed me a broader path to make this interesting to people who have not been, as I was, sort of intellectually drunk on this stuff. But we've had some wonderful experiences this year, and we've done a lot of really intriguing things. We've done several podcasts, both ourselves and with compatriots, about disabilities and some of the struggles involved with ableism, which is a more subtle form of discrimination, but no less real. I know Dr. Weaver prefers the term varying exceptionality to disability. However, many people wouldn't know what we were discussing if we just used that term. We have made a strong effort to be a voice for those who are not heard and provide a platform for ideas, thoughts, viewpoints, and historical nuggets that may have been overlooked or remain unknown. A wide variety of viewpoints in any forum must be expressed, even those we strongly disagree with.
Yeah, I agree with that so much because groupthink is a real thing. It happens all the time. We see it everywhere. And there's a danger in that because people get wrapped up in one way of thinking, one viewpoint. And that's just not life. Life is a variety of viewpoints. Yeah, may not agree with all of them, and I certainly don't. But still, I need to hear them because there's nuggets in many of them. So, anyhow, we have explored some lighter topics, some more for fun than anything else, and many important issues. We have focused on everyday things and unusual things. If it's a part of life, then we consider it fair game to explore. Of course, within the boundaries of propriety. I mean, we don't want to do a porno podcast or something like that. That would be not what we're aiming at all.
Not at all. Although genuine discussion of sexuality does not have to degenerate into that.
No, it doesn't. It does not. Okay. So, growing up in Virginia proudly and taking part in a lot of different movements, including things like civil rights and women's rights, and also having a sort of a melange, learning a lot about Southern history. I encouraged looking at several people including Charlie Duncan. You know, he was a great leader in the civil rights movement and someone that I did know. And John Mosby, often called the Gray Ghost. I went to the sites of where he did some of the things that he did during the Civil War. And I also knew that his post Civil War activities were highly respected. He was a good friend of Ulysses Grant, and it was just really interesting. It was, and I'm sure that some of that was stimulated, as I say, by my background.
I was very pleased to hear there was a television show about Mosby's experiences. My background, being immersed in history, having 3 degrees in it, as well as being a person with an exceptionality, I encourage us to look at several interesting, slightly lesser known figures. Dr. Samuel Proctor, who worked at Kean University for a while, grandson of a slave, and went to seminary with Dr. Martin Luther King.
I found that really interesting too, to learn about that. And that was a learning experience for me. And thank you, Dr. Deneen.
Oh, he was an amazing figure. I mean, the grandson of a slave, the man who succeeded Adam Clayton Powell as head of the Abyssinian Baptist Church in New York, helped run the Peace Corps, just an all around out of this world person. I also have a personal interest as a historian in some of the lesser known leaders around Charles de Gaulle and the French resistance in World War II, General Henri Girard, and the former Vichy official turned Allied patriot, Admiral Francois Darlan. We also made a point of exploring the historical and modern exploits of very important women. The Empress Theodora in the Byzantine Empire, female pirates in China and throughout the area that would become the United States. Both of these topics really required some digging, uncovering unknown facts. Theodora was, in a very popular political phrase, the power behind the throne as Empress of the Byzantine Empire during the reign of her brilliant husband Justinian, who 6 centuries before modern psychiatry was probably a person with bipolar disorder. Many historians did not realize her role in advocating for the rights of women and in keeping her husband on track and stable in a time without counseling, without medication. Byzantine women rivaled Spartan women. That's one of our earliest podcasts. Check that out too. In terms of having political power and personal autonomy in a very patriarchal medieval world. In the same way, the podcast on female pirates was quite revealing. Who would have thought that some of the most brilliant, successful, and vicious pirates were females? Pirate societies were proto-democratic. They provided leadership roles for people marginalized by conventional society, women, people of other religions, people of non-white racial background. We also touched on the fact that pirates are present around the world. Somalia, even today, is basically a pirate-run society.
Indeed. Yeah, I found it real interesting too. You know, we just couldn't resist the repeated interest expressed, which kind of encouraged us to do another edition of Bizarre Laws. As I told Dr. Deneen, I don't know if we should do another one of these. And he says, well, I've had a lot of requests for something. So, and I said, okie dokie, then we'll do it. You know, but examining the number of laws enacted concerning the strangest things is kind of interesting and maybe important to know about in some other ways. They do kind of make you wonder why we, the people, pay legislators such handsome salaries if they have the time to waste on such trivial, strange things, it's just kind of astounding.
It certainly is. Winston Churchill said once that democracy is the worst type of government except for all the others. It gives people the freedom to be who they are, and that can lead them to great heights or cause them to do very trivial and even horrible things. But we don't always do what is ultra serious. We had some fun presenting a survey of April Fool's jokes that have been propagated over the years. Okay, so we dove into some frivolity ourselves. Interestingly, we had the idea of presenting one fake April Fool's prank and offered a prize to our followers who were able to guess which prank was a prank presentation. There's a tongue twister for you. Many guests were wrong, but one of our very clever and wonderful followers, who happens to be a dear friend of mine, was right and won the personalized keychain.
She's a wonderful person. She really is. And yeah, I was very pleased that she was the one who guessed it and won, and it was all legit and fair. She didn't get any hints from us either. I got this weird idea and convinced Dr. Deneen to go along with it, which was to do a series of podcasts on bum, 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 body secretions. And he goes, can we do that? Yeah, we can, and we did. We didn't focus on the most known or thought about secretions like bowel movements and urine. We looked at other kinds of secretions that people usually don't even consider. We explored the value of many of these bodily secretions, including tears, mucus, semen, and our most popular podcast ever, earwax. Dr. Deneen and I have puzzled over the unexpected popularity of the Earwax podcast. We thought that it might have something to do with dermatillomania, popularized by, the famous Dr. Pimple Popper and others. But what we did do is we uncovered the fact that these bodily secretions play a vital role in health and body functioning. It was kind of interesting and fun.
Very interesting. I must admit, I am still totally mesmerized and shocked that of all the things we've done, earwax is the most popular. We did another series I really like, deciding to examine everyday household items we really take for granted. Kitchen inventions, Velcro, paper towels, scissors. Our modern world really began, folks, with making the ordinary tasks of life, dressing, cleaning, cooking, more manageable. It enables people to focus on developing their intellects, on recreation and spirituality. These are very difficult to pursue in what I call permanent survival mode, the subsistence lifestyle where it takes 8 hours to cook a meal. I also have to confess, ever since my days in middle school of making flag charts with my late beloved grandfather, I've had a lifelong interest in flag studies, or to give it the Latin term, vexiology, from the Latin word veculum, which means banner. I created an episode I really had fun with about some of the struggles in our neighbors to the north in Canada. There was a big conflict in the 60s of replacing the traditional red ensign banner, which was emblematic of the nation's status as a dominion of the British Empire, with the maple leaf banner we know worldwide today. All of that discussion explored many issues of religion, culture, politics, and identity, all things we talk about and really value today.
Yeah, we had episodes about yawning. Oh, And sneezing, typical body responses humans often exhibit. Interestingly, these behaviors have come to have significant social impact. What do I mean? Well, for example, if you're talking with somebody and they start yawning, you're probably going to assume that they're getting bored, right? And it's sort of a rude thing to do to some people, but whatever. Sneezing, especially during COVID-19, had social and health implications. Both of these behaviors are not frequently talked about. However, there has been some discussion of them. In literature, for example, sneezing was used in the play The Good Doctor, in which a vignette was devoted to a person being sneezed upon. It is hilarious. And yeah, I had the pleasure of being in that play. When we research the history of something else, spray cans. Yeah, spray cans. We were surprised to find that there are many, many, many types of spray cans and other aerosols that we commonly use. Now, the convenience of sprays is undeniable. On the other hand, the environmental damage that occurs if the wrong propellants are used is also indisputable.
You mentioned The Good Doctor. My dear friend Patrick Kehoe, who plays Benedict Arnold in our Peggy Arnold podcast, had the opportunity to be in that play and quite enjoyed it. Check that out if you get a chance. We also were able to debunk several medical and psychological myths about the yin and yang of things. This was very important because people can suffer severe damage when they rely on treatments that are either ineffective or outright dangerous. As a history buff, it was extremely exciting for me to learn. We had 2 episodes on this about the large number of territories which could have but did not become U.S. states. You'll be surprised here, folks. Newfoundland, which was a country of its own for a while, Sicily, what's called Upper California, which is the part of California that remained with Mexico after the Mexican-American War, and the Dominican Republic, to mention only 4 out of several dozen possibilities. Look at our Robert Smalls podcast to look at the idea of the Dominican Republic becoming a state and how close it came to happening. The reason these areas did not become states varied from racial and religious discrimination, distance, and geopolitical affairs in the time frame they were proposed.
Talking about areas and that sort of thing, we examined Christopher Columbus's history, especially in connection with the discovery of the Americas. And we found that it was quite interesting and somewhat controversial. And we did get into the interesting reasons why he's claimed as a hero and the discoverer of the Americas, even though he didn't actually land here. Controversial. And, I like that. I love it because we plan to pursue that dialogue and the questions that some of our we had some good followers and some great people that brought up questions about that and who want to present a different viewpoint. And I want to do it. We're going to do it. Just as soon as they can do it, we will do that and present some opposite views. I love that. I really do. Another one of these kind of topics, which was kind of disturbing to me in a way. It was very popular. Indigenous Peoples Day is what I'm talking about. Now, It is sad that although the day is nationally recognized, it doesn't receive the level of recognition and celebration that I feel that it should. Now, when we started that, when we decided to do it, I am ashamed. I am ashamed to admit that I didn't know the day that it was happening. I knew it had existed, but it's just not talked about. And that's not right. I just really feel badly about that. And so I was really glad that we were able to do Indigenous Peoples Day recognition.
I felt the same. I mean, nothing in history, good, bad, or otherwise, is served by hiding. We must bring out realities, and people have different points of view, and that can and should be explored, as we have done and are going to do. But I think that the broader perspective is invaluable. This is particularly the case in the next topic I'm looking at here. As a person with cerebral palsy and exceptionality, I've always been excited to see the expansion of opportunities for greater participation in public life and education by people of different circumstances. A really amazing alliance that no fiction author would have dared propose came about to promote the first legislation on that issue, the Rehab Act of 1973. Many prominent leaders with exceptionalities were engaged in protests to get that law passed, and later on to get regulations passed to get it enforced. The prominent civil rights social justice group, the Black Panthers, at the request of one of their top leaders who had multiple sclerosis, provided personal care assistance, food, and legal support to people engaged in a multi-month-long sit-in at the office of the Secretary of Health, Education, and Welfare in Washington, D.C., now called Health and Human Services. But what shocked me, the not merely conservative, but extremely reactionary right-wing John Birch Society, for its own purposes, supported the bill and encouraged to ally with civil rights leaders it would normally scorn, providing financial support, media coverage, legal participation, and many other things. Their involvement was actually promoted by a very famous African-American journalist by the name of George Schuler, who was bitterly opposed to civil rights laws, despite being involved in an interracial marriage himself at a time when that was illegal in many states. He advocated the Rehab Act because he felt that, correctly, people with exceptionality do not wish to be passive recipients of charity on someone else's terms. So he saw it as a way to promote employment, autonomy, and dignity, and replace welfare with, in his words, a proudly earned paycheck. As the son of a corpsman in Vietnam, I was very distressed to learn of the recruitment, thanks to deferments and difficulties in finding military personnel, of people really physically and mentally unable to do military service, to the very controversial Project 100,000. It intrigued me. There's something positive in almost anything I've learned. That one positive outcome of this terrible idea was the development of electronic equipment, including VCRs, to educate soldiers that had limited or non-existent literacy.
Indeed, there's a lot more we could say about that too. We could go on and say something about every single individual podcast we've published this year, but we're not going to do that. We do encourage people to check out the many different podcasts we've done in hopes that you'll find a few topics that intrigue or interest you in some ways. In addition to reminding people about what we have done, we also use this review as a kind of self-check to note what we have done, the stories we have uncovered, and the balance of voices we have presented. Now, we haven't succeeded perfectly at all. We know that, but it's a work in progress and will remain a work in progress. We got some really interesting things coming up, and we're going to continue to branch out and cover a really wide variety of topics, but we're going to do some things differently than we have. And I really don't want to say too much more about that, but you'll see it and hear it. We hope that you'll join us in this very challenging and interesting journey of discovery, fun, and also remembering. History is, as we like to say, boots on the ground history recognizes this too, that history is not just past. That is there, yeah, for sure. But it's also the present and it affects the future. So it's really, history is a kind of time traveler in a way. And, gosh, we'd like you to join us in this journey. Look, I know that some of our plans are going to perhaps startle or surprise some of our followers. And one of the things we hope to do is get some new and more well known participants with many different viewpoints. Now, when I say different viewpoints, we're hoping to have some people with radically different perspectives than what we have, certainly than what I have, and that's fine. Again, in a representative democracy or republic, that is critical. It is absolutely critical to have divergence and let people have their voice. That's very important. It's important to me, even for the people that I don't agree with. So stagnating is not in our plans. Come and join us and see.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, we are in the process, I won't give away either, of trying to contact and work with many people of diverse and even controversial views. There are also topics we're going to cover that haven't been thought of before in both podcasts. So I really encourage you folks. There are 118 episodes here in Things You Don't Know and 8 in History Twists. They really run the gamut, as we said, from serious to just playfully amusing, things that break your heart. And we enjoy doing this, but we value the contributions of contributors and of each one of you. Contribution has come to mean money, just as intimacy has come to mean only sex. And both those words have two much more in-depth meanings and possibilities. When you make a comment, give a like, give a suggestion for a topic, it makes our job a lot easier. We love it, but it takes a lot. So come back, 2025, very happy holiday to you all. Had a wonderful birthday yesterday, and I thank those of you who sent me comments. And come back next year and just see how much more fun we're going to have.
It's going to be a roller coaster ride. You got to see it. You got to come. You got to come. I'm very excited. All right.
Me too.
All right. Well, for now, bye-bye.
So long.